Thanks.
Nice to meet you.
And you. Okay, so I'm here with David Ince. He's the scriptwriter behind a filming competition called Breathe. Welcome.
Thanks
you. Again. Welcome to Berlin. So, what's it about? What's this, and where did it come from?
So Breathe is an action thriller. It's adapted from a novel that I have out at the moment, and it's the first part of a trilogy. I owe my publisher 2 more books. And the story came out of watching action movies when I was a kid with Schwarzenegger and Stallone.
Yeah, the Die Hard.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. And the question I always had was about all of the bad guys that get shot, indiscriminately turn up, and a few seconds later they're killed off. And I always wondered why they bothered. And what was it that made them loyal to the ultimate bad guy, and why did they risk their lives? So Breathe came about out of the desire to answer that question. So it's a story populated by characters who are in one part henchmen and one part victims of a sinister, anonymous bad guy.
So they're kind of like the pawns in the game.
They're like the pawns. They're being coerced to do his bidding, but they don't want to do it. They're being forced to. So every character is a complicated sort of individual, because they have a lot of guilt and angst over the stuff that they're being forced to do, but they're so afraid of the bad guy that they don't feel that they can say no. So it's all to do with power, it's all to do with manipulation and control, but it's set up and pitched as a hard-boiled action thriller.
Now you've, and I knew this anyway, this is for the benefit of you, as I knew it's part of a trilogy, but tell me how this works in terms of, you owe your publisher 2 books, you said. And how does that work? Are you given a time frame to get these?
No. So the books are the contracts that I have are for each individual book. So it's kind of down to me as to when I write them. But you don't want to lose the momentum that you've built up with the first book.
And how do you not lose that momentum?
By working hard or trying to.
Yeah, but I suppose the problem with that is, that I speak to lots of writers, obviously, and they need to be in a particular frame of mind often, so you might not be able to work hard because you might not have the drive to do it for whatever reason, or don't feel you can write at that moment in time. So how do you drive yourself to, because I'm assuming that you have to have a regime to make yourself write, or maybe you just do it anyway.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you talk to all successful writers, and I'm very much at the start of my career, but I do read a lot of interviews with people that are very well established. Yeah. You have to treat it like a job and work solid kind of job hours and that kind of stuff. The whole sort of arty-farty creative kind of lifestyle is a part of it, but at the same time, if you want to be commercially successful as an author, you've got to put the hours in.
You still got to bring the money in.
And you treat it like work. You get up in the morning, you have breakfast, and you go to work, and then you stop in the evening, or whatever your routine might be. But
exactly the same for me. I work from home mainly.
Yeah.
And I couldn't have done this when I was in my 20s, frankly, because I would have been messing around too much, but obviously I'm quite a bit older than that now, and I have a sort of pretty good regime. Having said that, I'm often working late to some people in America and so on and so forth, but even so, you're right, and I understand where you're coming from. Yeah. Now, I asked this a script writer the other day, Massimo, and he wrote, funny enough, he's wrote a book and it then turned into a screenplay. Again, for the benefit of people that this might help, let's be honest, a screenplay and a book are massively different, aren't they?
They are, yeah.
I mean, I'll use an example, it's very, you might explain how someone is feeling in a book, but then you've got to then reflect that in, let's be honest, in what a person is saying, often, isn't it? Which may not be in the book. So how do you convert, you can see where I'm going with this.
Yeah, sure.
Or perhaps I should ask, what's more difficult, the book or the script?
I think screenplay writing is, for me, I mean, it would be different for everybody, but writing a screenplay is much harder than writing a book. Yeah. It's less work in the sense that it's far fewer words and far fewer pages, but it's much harder because you're constrained. It's like trying to tell a story in a box. Yeah. And a lot of the tools you have as an author, writing literary work or narrative work in that sense, where you can get inside the heads of characters, you don't have those tools when you're writing a screenplay, unless you put in a voiceover or something like that.
Which doesn't always work, does it?
Which is quite often the worst thing you can do, yeah. So screenplay writing is harder as far as I'm concerned. It requires more development and more focus, and it's an interesting challenge.
The trouble is that, well, unless you, do you account for that when you're writing the book? Do you think, I must remember this, I'm probably going to write a screenplay about this? Or do you not think that way? Because if you did, you presume that flexibility built in.
I think when I wrote the book for Breathe, I certainly didn't have that in mind at all.
Will you moving forward?
I think moving forwards, now that I've started to do both, I think that is an element that I'll be thinking about. Yeah.
Right.
But I haven't done enough yet to know. But I think so. I think for sure you'll have one eye on how you're going to adapt it into a screenplay.
Now, you probably told me before, you had a career before writing, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
Which was?
Graphic design.
So, often, I speak to later, funny enough, this guy I was telling you about, Massimo, he was a graphic designer as well.
Really?
No, sorry, he wasn't, another filmmaker. He was something to do with finance, actually, but there was another graphic designer. Obviously, I meet quite a few filmmakers, but it's not unusual to meet graphic designers that get drawn into filmmaking because it's a creative art form, isn't it? And then I can see how it morphs into other things. Well, you wouldn't ever go back to that though? Oh
yeah, for sure. I love it. So
you still do graphic design?
I still do projects from time to time as a freelancer. Yeah, it's a really enjoyable thing to do, and I've always enjoyed being a designer. It's just movies and books are a much greater passion. So.
And they're not that far, the particular filmmaking is not that far because you're creating something, aren't you?
Well, design is all inherently visual,
yeah.
So are movies. So if photography is often a very big part of design, and I've trained as a photographer as well, and that's another passion that I've always had. So when you're interested in telling stories and you work in a very visual world, it's not actually a bigger leap from design to movies.
And funny enough, excuse me, it's my voice going, who took the picture of you? Because it's a really good picture. Did you do that yourself?
As embarrassingly as it is, yeah, that was.
Yeah, it was good. No. You should come to me. So it's a really good picture.
I needed something for the publisher when the book came out, so I think we didn't have very much time. There was no one around, so I just set that one up. But I do loads of photos, tons of photos. I'm always taking pictures.
Yeah, because you happen to know. I know people won't know this, but my wedding photos, you knew there was a botany, didn't you? Which is a really stunning place to. And you're right. There's film crews down there all the time. In fact, when we went down there to Recce for our wedding. One of the times I took 2 or 3 trips down and there was a film crew down there, I remember seeing it. Massive film crew down there, and I know it's really popular. And I don't know if you got that far on our wedding photos, but there's loads of photos. We went down the slip and took loads of the pictures. It's a really nice backdrop.
Yeah, it's really, really great.
And we got, it was like the golden hours. We went down about 9:30. It's late June, so it's obviously dark, just starting to get the lights on and go, and then Stuart took us down and we get that beautiful sunset. And so it worked really, really well, and I can understand it. But I'm going off piece there, but I guess that I know you've done, I don't know if you made a film there, but you certainly was presumably photographed down there, I guess.
Yeah, I've done some photography there, but we shot a couple of scenes of a movie down there.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it's just a lovely place, and I really like it, but I go most places with a camera. So I've got my blog and I've got my Instagram feed, and although I pitch myself as a writer and a filmmaker, 75% of all the content that's on there are photographs.
Yeah.
Still photos, so it's a lifelong passion, it'll always be there.
And when you write, so Breathe is a good example of, I know you've got the idea, all right, what's the story to these bad guys? Forget the John McClane, I want to know their backstory. But all of a sudden, and I've asked this before, you've got a blank screen in front of you, haven't you? How do you begin writing? Or you've already got the ideas in your head morphing in, they've morphed and you already kind of know? Or is it, I know what the idea is, let's just get on, and then suddenly, hang on, we've got to go.
I think for me, usually I begin with a notebook as well, and I don't begin, so you might open a file in Final Draft where you're going to write your screenplay, but I never start writing anything in that program on that file. I have a file that I've been writing on my laptop for the last 13 years. It's got over 1 million words in it, and it's like a brain dump, and I'll begin working out an idea in a very rough, very unstructured kind of way, and I'll just start dumping stuff in there, and I'll use my notebook, I'll use cue cards, post-it notes, I use the Notes app on my phone, and things just gradually. So
you might be talking to me now and look at, I don't know, that light up there and think, oh, what did that light come on? Or whatever, and it's a silly example, but so you don't forget it, you make a quick note about it, and then it's there.
And gradually over time, all of those different elements that you're jotting down in different places begin to coalesce into a concrete, solid kind of idea. So by the time you get in front of the actual laptop with Final Draft sitting in front of you ready to write a screenplay, much of that development work has already taken place elsewhere. So I never sit and look at a blank canvas and wonder how to begin, because the process is very organic. It begins months, maybe even years before. And
have you had any formal training to do the screenplays?
Yeah, sort of, half and half. I was rubbish at English at school, and
wasn't great.
Yeah, I didn't do very well at all, and I started writing just for myself, and I'd written a couple of books, more than a couple actually, quite a few, never been published or anything, and I felt like I needed some kind of formal education, so I went and did a master's degree in creative writing.
Blimey.
Part-time in the evenings while I was designing. And it was
So how long was that, like 4 or 5 years?
2 years.
Oh, 2 years? Oh,
yeah,
right,
it was
okay.
only 2 years.
Oh, right, okay.
And that was one of the best things I've done.
Was that for the Open University or something?
It was, no, Canterbury Christchurch. I went.
That's
and
I
did
didn't
it
know you could do that.
Yeah.
Anyone can do it, pretty much.
Well, you have to submit. So all of my background has been in art and photography, so I've never studied anything academic. So I phoned up the course leader, explained what my background was, told him I write a lot, and he just said, well, send me some stuff and then apply. So I got in, that was all.
So that's really good, because I always assumed that you would need at least O's or A's, but it's not necessarily the case.
Oh, well, I'd done 2 other degrees before.
Oh, right, okay.
So I have a BA in graphic design and another master's in photography that I've done
right,
before.
Brilliant.
So I'd been educated to that level, but only in artistic subjects, never in an academic subject. So I did that, which was really useful. And then I spent some time with the Screen Arts Institute in London, learning how to develop screenplays and write treatments for movies and that kind of stuff. And that was exceptionally good as well. That taught me a lot about the formal sort of process for developing a screen-orientated story. So I've had some, but not huge amounts.
But it's interesting. I assume that writing, you're as much passionate about there as you do with the graphic side.
10
maybe
times,
it's also
10 times more.
Right, okay.
Yeah. Writing is my big thing. It's the one thing that gets me up in the morning. I love it more than any other part of the process.
And give us a flavour of what you've got sort of moving forward after. I know you've got these other 2 books that you've got to write at some point.
Yeah. So
20 years or whatever.
Well, I'm working on the part 2 already. That's well in development, which is good. I've been working on another book that I have a first draft of that's taken me the last 18 months.
Completely unconnected?
Totally unconnected, completely new story. I have the latest book, which is coming out on November 14th, which again is a completely unconnected story to breathe. And I'm working on a bunch of screenplay ideas. I've just received my first actual commission to write a feature film, which is really lovely, and a couple of shorts, and other ideas are sitting there. I've probably got enough work to keep you going for about 20 years. It's just whether you can turn it into an income.
Well, that's the thing.
So that's the trick, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So the commission for the movie, how does that work? How does that come about? And then after you explain how it comes about, tell me how you go about writing it, because they'll give you a brief, of course. How do you make it fit into the brief that they want? So whatever it is about, how do you do that? How did you get the gig?
It was somebody I met at the festival in Nice.
Right, okay.
And they watched our movie. He'd optioned a book that he wanted to develop as a movie, and he saw what we'd done previously and just got in touch.
That's simple.
It was that simple. So there was some toing and froing over a contract and what have you, but it was that simple.
But it's a goer now?
It's a goer, yeah. I've started work on it.
So they're now going to give you a time frame?
Only a rough time frame.
What kind of time to get it finished?
A few months, maybe not a few months, I don't know. However long it takes for a treatment, but I'm going to...
Because the pressure's on now.
The pressure's on, it needs to be delivered, but there isn't a shoot date or anything along that. So I'm not working towards a specific deadline, but you don't want to leave it hanging around. So
no.
Yeah, I'll be working on it to get it done.
That's really good news. Really
so
when you got the call, it must have been absolutely like nirvana.
Over the moon. It's been a dream come true, yeah. To be commissioned to write work for other people, tell other people's stories, it's been a long time that I've been dreaming about doing that. So it's been awesome. It's been really good.
And what if it's a kind of subject, I mean, obviously I'm not asking the details, that's obviously confidential, but what if it's a kind of subject matter that you haven't tackled before? Because it may well be.
It is.
Well, okay, so how do you square that?
To be honest, I'm not thinking too much about that. It's set in
it's a rom-com, don't tell me.
No, it's not a
Have
rom-com.
you written comedy?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
The first book that I published, which was a self-published book, is a political satire.
Right.
That's the most fun I've ever had writing.
Because I often
whether other people find it funny,
well,
I have no idea.
I just wonder if comedy isn't one of the most difficult things to write.
Yeah, it's a political satire. It's not a laugh out loud funny. It's not full of gags and jokes, but it's very light-hearted and very stupid and irreverent. And writing it was awesome. It was such good fun.
So you got the gig suddenly, brilliant. You wake up the next day and go, "It's real now."
It's sort of.
Okay.
But it's because of the contract sort of process has gone on. It's not like it suddenly hits because you're thinking about it the moment you're introduced to the material. It's adapted from a book. So I read the book early. I've been reading.
Oh right,
it since.
okay. So that's useful, isn't it?
Yeah, you've got a good sort of basis to move forwards on. So
okay.
it doesn't feel. I don't feel under pressure at the moment. But I think once it gets going, I'm sure that will be there. But at the moment, it just feels really exciting. And talking to him about the ideas that he has for it and his vision for what he wants, and then trying to...
And it's a feature, just to be clear.
It's a feature, yeah.
Blimey. Brilliant.
Yeah, it's been good.
David, thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
I knew it'd be
Take
fun.
care.
Thank you.